Hello everybody and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast. I'm your host Jez, and today we're going to be talking to friend of the podcast Marcel Kuhn about following intuition and enthusiasm. Now, if you've never listened to a Magical Learning Podcast, or if you're a long-time listener, the podcast is looking at sort of difficult topics in business and life and breaking them down in a fun and lighthearted way. Marcel's an amazing friend of the podcast, an amazing talker, and has really interesting ideas. And this is really good. If you're someone who wants to follow their intuition and enthusiasm a bit more and lead them to success in business, this is a great conversation. So enjoy this. And as always, everybody, have a magical week. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. This week, we have a guest on who we had on almost exactly a year ago, so it's very exciting to get an annual check-in from this person, but we'll check in with the regular team first before we jump in and chat to them. So we've got Danette and Allegra, but you're both coming in from one location, so I guess, Danette, do you want to tell us what's going on this week?
Hey, Jez. I've had a big week this week, so been at the farm and now in Melbourne. So tonight we're going out to celebrate Jez's 30th, which was a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to just do a brief pop in because my niece Ava has come from the United States. So Ava, just come over and pop in and say hello.
Hi.
So we're going to the farm tomorrow. We're going to hang out for a couple of days. There you go.
Very exciting. Well, hello, Ava. And Leggers, how are you going this week?
Yeah, pretty good. Had a job interview today, which went pretty well, I hope. So, yeah, other than that, just been cruising along. Hung out with Ava. We started Supernatural together. Yeah. And we've just been watching Bridgerton before we jumped on this podcast.
Some hard-hitting television there. No, it's all good. Always classic shows, those ones. So thanks for that, you two. And Marcel, before we get into who you are, how's your week been?
The week has been exciting. There so much happened that I don't even know where to start. So I was at the event in Switzerland, Web3 Fest, and I was a speaker in a panel. For the first time I spoke on a panel on AI transformation and leadership. So maybe we dive into some of these topics later in this conversation. So I had a workshop, this panel, and I joined just some of the startup pitches of the Web3 space. So it's really super exciting how people shape the future right now.
Absolutely. And we're so happy to have you on, Marcel, to chat with us about this. Now, I'm just going to fill in people who may be being introduced to you for the first time here. Now, if this is your first time interacting with Marcel, I'm going to also recommend going back to episode 163 of this podcast, Unthinkable Living in Flow for Magical Expansion, which was another great chat we've had with you. But for people that don't know, Marcel Kuhn is a Swiss keynote speaker, best-selling author and trainer, and is your expert guide to mastering change within corporate landscapes. As an adept surfer, Marcel weaves the profound lessons of surf and the ocean into his approach to leading transformation. He motivates corporations to undertake the unthinkable, to ride the wave of change rather than resisting it. His insightful keynotes are rich with actionable advice, motivating tales, and a strategic roadmap tailored to the challenges of corporate change. With Marcel, prepare to catch the wave of change and surf towards a resilient and successful corporate future. With 16 years of experience leading continuous improvement initiatives and building his own company, Quantum Jump, Marcel has championed growth, disruption, and engagement across various industries. He guides and inspires organizations to unleash their full potential to achieve exponential growth through keynotes, workshop, corporate training, and events. So, Marcel, thank you so much for being on the Magical Learning Podcast once again.
Thank you for this. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to chat with you. And I was a little bit, really, a little anxious and excited.
Well, Marcel, before we get into today's topic, which is a great one, you sent me a bunch of topics and all of them were really good, but this one I just thought was kind of an interesting one that we hadn't really touched on. Before we get into that, how is the surfing going? We touched on this last podcast, so how's things going in that front?
Actually, this year I'm not surfing as much as I wish because I really focus on building the business, and that means I cannot be so much in the water as I wish, because usually the surf places here are remote and far away. So this year the highlight that is coming up is a surf trip with my kids in Portugal. So I take my 3 boys and my parents, we go to Ericeira, Portugal, and spend 2 weeks surfing.
Amazing. Well, I mean, surfing the wave of successful business is what you've been doing, it sounds like, in the meantime. And I guess you'll have to come down to Australia to get some surfing in down here, because I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, Australia has been on my dream list for a long time. I just haven't been, had the chance to get down there, but I will sure in the future go there.
Well, that's it. And look, you've got enthusiasm for it, which I think leads us right into today's topic. So the topic that I picked from the list was following intuition and enthusiasm. And you kind of gave us this little key quote here, which was, how can leaders create an environment that encourages following intuition and enthusiasm, and what impact does this have on team collaboration and creativity? So I think before we jump into everyone's question, Marcel, did you want to talk about how you came up with this topic?
Yeah, this is the core of what I've been doing, and so this is my book, Unthinkable Life Teachings from a Soul Surfer. We talked about this last time, and this is really the core philosophy that I'm sharing there, to follow your excitement and follow your intuition. So that's at the core of my kind of life philosophy. So that's why it made a lot of sense to bring up this topic.
Well, Marcel, we love how you blend your life philosophy with sort of your business philosophy as well. So I think let's just jump straight into the conversation. So I might start with Danette. Danette, what was your question? And tell us a bit about how you picked it.
So 2 questions as always, Marcel. And my first one was, what impact does having an environment that encourages following intuition and creativity have on a team?
Yes, so I think traditionally the companies are more, limited by structures. There are a lot of rules, and this really makes us focus on process and regulations, and having an environment that allows for collaboration, co-creation, and more kind of the feminine traits, traditionally feminine traits, will allow to have more creativity and actually take you out from the linear to the exponential. Because as long as you're in the structure, in rules, in regulations, you will be limited to process thinking, to left brain thinking. And when you step out of the left brain and kind of this illusion of control, and you drop into your heart and into the right side of the brain, you will really go from linear to exponential.
I love that answer. So then my next question was, what causes leaders not to create that type of environment?
Yeah, exactly, the fear. The leaders usually are quite, focused on themselves, on ego. What they think, they have to be the smartest in the room usually. And this really limits you from this, following your intuition. Because when we talk about flow state, the only thing in the way of flow state, being in flow state and really dropping into your heart and into your intuition, is actually the ego. The ego protects us from attacks, and it's really a fear-based space. So as long as you're in the ego, in the control, in structure, you limit your team and yourself from being in flow state and being in this limitless creativity.
Both those answers, and I hope that the leaders listening take point about that, because it is really important to step the ego aside and actually move into that flow. So thank you, Marcel. As always, this is a great conversation, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so Marcel, I'm actually going to jump to Kanika's question here quickly, because I think it's a good one to kind of also get a bit of your side of things, because I love how you sort of weave your own life into a lot of these sort of different elements that you like to talk about. So Kanika's question here was, what has your journey been when it comes to following your enthusiasm and intuition in both life and work?
Yeah, so I was, in my book, I was talking about that I was caught inside, and in surfing, the surfers talk about being caught inside, being caught between the waves and the shore, and really struggling against paddling against the current, fighting against the wave. And this is really more in an ego and fear space. So actually stepping out of that allowed me now to be in flow, when we don't fight the current, when we really go with the flow instead of fighting. So it's, for me, hustling is really fighting against and chasing success instead of being grounded, going with the flow. So it has been a personal experience, more a journey of suffering for me. And like the first time, or one of the times that is really impactful that I followed my intuition, the excitement, is when I started to surf, when I learned how to surf in California. And that's when I felt really my element. Water is my element, and being in the water and surfing is really connected me to the larger body of water. It connects you to everything, and you get out of your mind, out of your ego, and you're really present. I don't know if this answered that, but for me it's kind of what I teach or what I talk about in the book is kind of my struggle, my fighting, and how I got out of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is really important. I think being able to find your own thing that can put you into that flow state is really important. I know for me it's basketball, for other people it's different things, but all of that is so important. So I definitely agree. And I think I've heard surfing is a really good one for that from other people, in yourself included. All right, let's jump into Alan's question here. So Alan has given us this question. He said, I've been the person to think about it, redo the numbers, and get another opinion to make sure I'm making the right decision, which is very challenging for those around me. When making business decisions, how can we tell the difference between intuition and enthusiasm and making decisions because they feel easy or comfortable?
Okay, first of all, what I feel, what the underlying assumption of this question is, like the, kind of wanting to be in control of that the numbers are right. So this, for me, sounds more like left brain, like being structured, being in control, and actually this brings you away from following your excitement. Of course, like there is a part, the numbers have to be right, but control really limits you and puts you in that fear and scarcity mindset. So I don't know. That's maybe not an answer to this. It's just my thought on that question. It's more when you try to control and check and double check and get a second opinion, it's really in that space of scarcity and fear. But the other thing you said, enthusiasm and what you said, enthusiasm and following your intuition, is actually in the same thing, right? So when you follow your excitement, this is always connected to your dream. So it's connected to your intuition, and the way to listen to your intuition is kind of this feeling. It's more a feeling, right? When you follow your intuition, you can ask yourself, what is the most expansive? What feels most expansive? What option feels most expansive? And when you talk to, or when you listen to all the big visionaries and game changer like Elon Musk and maybe Jeff Bezos and people like that, and Naveen Jain, they really listen to their intuition. So it's not about control and checking the numbers, but it's more about following that feeling of excitement, of expansiveness.
Amazing. Yeah, well, thanks for that, Marcel. Now, I might throw it at Leggers. Leggers, what was your question? And would you... Yeah.
So my question for you, Marcel, was how can we create a workplace culture that encourages following intuition and enthusiasm?
Yes, so I think we need to create empty spaces in the work week, and what can help us, if with artificial intelligence we can optimize the process. All the process tasks can be automated or can be made more efficient by AI. So this leaves us more time to have the empty space where the magic happens, to co-create, to collaborate, to step outside of your comfort zone. Because to be in flow state, you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to challenge your brain by non-combative argument, by speaking without a script, just speaking in flow state, writing in flow state, doing music. So this actually changes the structure of your brain. Maybe you've heard of the concept of neuroplasticity. It's really hard for me to speak, but it's kind of when you think more expansive, the structure of your brain will actually change. So you will, by thinking more expansively, you actually create more synapses. The structure of your brain, the speed of the brain changes. And I just want to throw in there a number that is really exciting for me. So when you're in your left brain thinking, the speed of information is 40 bits per second in the left brain thinking, right? It's kind of Daniel Kahneman in his book Thinking Fast and Slow. This is the slow thinking. But when you go into the intuition, into your right side of the mind, it's 40 million bits per second. So if you think about which one you choose, then the answer might be quite easy, like 40 bits per second to 40 million bits per second. And that's, it takes a lot of courage to drop into that right side of the brain, because you have to let go of the ego, the control. And so I've talked about this book, and it took me 7 years to write the book, because not because of the writing, but mainly because of the not writing, right? Maybe you all know that when you work on something, actually the self doubts and all this and not the doing stops you from making it happen. And last November, I have this 21-day unthinkable challenge, and I did a challenge of writing for 21 days and seeing if it's possible to write a book. And in 21 days, writing 1,000, 2,000 words each day, I had, and this all in flow state. So just setting the intention, I had a book in 21 days instead of 7 years.
Wow.
That is really good. Yeah, sorry, go Legos.
I was just going to say, that was also the bits knowledge that you had with the left side, right side of the brain. That I've never heard that before, but that was really cool. Mm. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking of that, when you think about sort of this whole topic and how much if people are putting these restrictions on, how much it's just limiting the amount of work that can actually get done by the whole team, if we're just thinking about that kind of level of processing speed, I mean, it really is an important thing, I guess. But what you were just saying, Marcel, really leads into my question really nicely. So I think I'm going to jump straight into it, which is I struggle to maintain enthusiasms for longer periods with a project. I'm more of a starter than a finisher. What tips do you have for keeping enthusiasm throughout a project?
Okay, first I'm going to talk about what you just said, right? Our right side of the brain. Our brain is a supercomputer. So if we if we tell ourselves that we are a starter and not a finisher, we actually program our mind to be like that. And I have the same story as you. That's why I do this 21-day unthinkable challenge. So for me, the 21-day unthinkable challenge is doing a skill or habit or activity that is connected to your dreams. So it's connected to your excitement, to your enthusiasm, to your dreams, and show up each day for 21 days for 30 minutes. That's what I did for the book. So maybe you could do challenges like that, and then because when you change the challenge, but you still go towards the same goal, it's all aligned, so it's all connected. So for you, I know you do stand-up comedy, so you can really like I did, get up in the morning and write in flow state. So that's what I did with the book. Get up in the morning when you're still in that dream state, your mind. I don't even drink coffee. I just go to the computer and type in right away. So you're in that flow state. So for me, it's not about hustling and chasing this challenge. It sounds like that. But for me, the challenge is more showing up daily for your dream, even if it's 30 minutes or an hour. And for me, when I put down the threshold, when you say you have to do 2 hours per day, that's a lot. But if you think about exponential and you just spend 30 minutes doing something exponential, I wrote 140 pages in that 21 days. And that's a book, right? So it's crazy when you go from that, from the left side of thinking where you have to plan, you have to have the structure, and you drop into the flow state. And actually the structure is naturally there, because we are storytellers. All the knowledge in the old ages, if you look at the Aborigines, all their knowledge has been transformed by stories. So we are natural storytellers. We are natural story listeners. So it will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you don't need to force the structure. It will happen naturally.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for that. That's a great idea there. Marcel, I just want to, just as someone who wants to just pick your brain a little bit about the specifics of this, you're saying you literally just wake up and you just go straight to the computer. Is that what you were saying with that?
Yeah, with that challenge, I did that, and I just set an intention. I don't know, in your case, if you want to write the script for the stand-up comedy, you maybe have a topic, like that's the intention, and then you just let it flow. And so, yeah, at that time when you go from dream state straight to flow state, you're still, like, the ego is not woken up yet. So you don't have this voice that says, oh, Jess, this is not good enough. This is not funny. What people will think about that, because this really stops you from flow. This voice that tells you, the nagging voice that tells you this is not good enough, not cool enough, not funny enough. So that's it. That works for me. I don't know. Maybe you're a night owl or something else, or maybe for you it's when I'm too much in my head, then I need to move in nature. And for you, it could be basketball. When you go to basketball, you shut up your ego, and maybe you can go straight from basketball to writing your whatever you want to write.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great tip. It's a way to just get those little, like, almost that would be roadblocks, just get them out of the way so you can just kind of go. I love that thinking. Thanks for that, Marcel. Let's jump into John's question here. So John asked, how do you balance enthusiasm from your staff between being cowboys and going Wild West? And I guess in this sense, he just means people that are just, just doing their own thing and might be unrelated to their job, I assume. I never fully got a full translation of what John fully meant by that, but I think that's the general idea. So how do you balance your staff from using their enthusiasm but not just doing other random things?
Okay, so to make this happen, it's really important to have a vision that is carried by all. Maybe you have heard of Peter Senger's book, the 5 Elements. So it's the learning organization. So one that is really super important is have a clear vision that is carried by everyone, understood and carried by everyone. The best way is to co-create a vision, so everyone is aligned, and it's kind of aligned with our dreams. Right, so if you have the right people, they will have the similar dream as the organization. That would be the best. And if then you have core values that everyone agrees, that everyone lives by, then you kind of have the guiding light, which is the vision, right? And you have the core principle to that you want to live by. So that's kind of it's not rules. It's based on principles. And as an example, I do that with my kids, right? So because the company culture, how you create the company culture is the same as you create the family culture, right? So I'm not strict on rules and structure. I'm strict on behaviors and core values. So if in an organization everyone is super clear about what you stand for, what you live by, what's important to you, and you know where to go, what's your vision, there is no one will be a cowboy and just doing what's not aligned.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great insight, and I think it's a nice way to build a company as well that way, which is just less about, sort of the raw data and the more the attitude of the people. It does remind me of one job I used to have. I've mentioned this before on different podcasts, where I used to work at a retail store, but their whole thing was based on the numbers, and they had such difficult working environments because that was the case, that it made the work very toxic. If someone accidentally put through a sale under someone else's login, it would be pandemonium because that person's lost all this money, according to their data set, as opposed to, someone who has just effectively done a sale properly. So, yeah, so it's interesting when you build it the opposite way, how sort of damaging that can kind of be.
And what you mentioned, that's fear-based again. Right, and by that fear, you actually limit your employees from really being in the exponential.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I definitely felt like that. I felt like there was no, like, you were very stuck in a box, and there's not a lot of leeway to kind of bring a lot of yourself to the job. But yeah, so thanks for that, Marcel. Well, I have been taking a bunch of notes, but I just wanted to grab some final thoughts because we've run through the questions here. But I might go to Danette. Danette, did you have any final thoughts today on our conversation with Marcel and following intuition and enthusiasm?
And Marcel, your story about waking up and writing really resonated with me, because there was a time where in 12 months I wrote 18 qualifications by getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. Monday morning and then just writing, because I'm a morning person, and I'm about to write my second book, and it is due at the editor in 4 weeks. And that process I loved, and so I'm going to adopt it, and we'll talk again about how awesome it is. And I just love the whole exponential way of looking at the world. It's just such a higher energy, a much better use of, you know, our skills, intuition, etc. So another fabulous conversation. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Lakers, did you have any final thoughts on today's conversation and following intuition and enthusiasm?
Yeah, I think today's conversation was really great. I feel like I've learned a lot. Especially, I definitely didn't know that flow state had so much more sort of information that goes through your brain as opposed to when you're sort of working within sort of a restricted environment. So that's definitely very interesting to learn. But yeah, I think just like trying to play to people's strengths and, you know, what they're passionate about, I think helps with these sorts of things. So yeah, I think you've touched on a lot of good stuff today. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just have to say that one of the biggest takeaways for me is just how much of what you're talking about is just showing up and being more human almost. You know, it's like taking us away from being a robot where, you know, you can kind of be replaced by AI potentially, as opposed to being a human being that's showing up and bringing so much of what you're talking about, this creativity, this, you know, your uniqueness. I think that's really amazing. And then the other quote that I definitely am taking away is showing up for your dream. I think that was one that sort of resonated with me a lot. You know, if you want to follow your dream, you got to show up for it. So I thought that was really good. Now, before we see where people can find you, did you have any final thoughts today, Marcel, on the topic of following intuition and enthusiasm and just today's conversation?
Yeah. So just what you guys just said is like now with the AI, and I really believe in the potential, in the power of AI, and I find it a beautiful opportunity. So I see more the opportunity than than what could be going wrong. So it's the best time to be human. Like the human self is really important. So what I share in my book is flow, the abbreviation flow, finding love and oneness within. So if we are really connected to ourselves, if we are grounded, if we are really in our human side and allow others to be human, to be vulnerable, then we can be our best selves, our unique self. And it's not about it's not about me, it's going from I mentality to us mentality, because all the big problems, all the big challenges can only be solved as a collective. So that means shutting up the ego and really co-creating, collaborating together.
Amazing. Well, once again, what an awesome chat, Marcel. Now, before we go, we have to say, people have probably been listening to this and going, how can I connect with Marcel? And, you know, obviously we're talking about your book before, so do you want to highlight that as well again? But where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so you can check out my book. It's called Unthinkable Life Teachings from a Soul Surfer. You can find it on Amazon. Yeah, and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Marcel Kuhn. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the best way. So if you're a company that want to step out of the linear and go into the exponential, I can really help you to do that. And also, I focus more on organizations because of it's interesting for scale and helping organizations and companies and leaders to lead change and to go from linear to exponential. But also, I work with people one-on-one. If you're an entrepreneur, a leader, reach out to me. I'm happy to have a chat.
Amazing. Well, it's always good to have you on again. You're now officially a friend of the podcast, Marcel, I think, being a returning guest, so it's always a pleasure to have you on. Everybody that's been listening, sharing, thank you so much. It's been great. And I guess, as always, everybody, have a magical week.